caretakers of this land, water, and air, the Cahuilla, Tongva, Luiseño, and Sureño peoples, and all of their ancestors and descendants, past, present, and future. Today, this meeting place is home to many indigenous peoples from all over the world, including UCR faculty, students, and staff, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these homelands. Roll call, please.
PPT Rao,
Present.
Chancellor Klausner,
Absent.
Chancellor Zhao,
Present.
Chancellor Mendoza,
Present.
Chancellor Nguyen,
Excused.
Chancellor Ibate,
Present.
Chancellor Min,
Present.
Chancellor Mondragon,
Excused.
Chancellor Gundula,
Present.
Chancellor Han,
Excused.
Sina Senator Phoenix,
Present.
Sina Senator Chu,
Present.
Sina Senator Shaka,
Present.
Sina Senator Day, DCOE Senator Biasi,
Present.
DCOE Senator Zohari,
Excused.
SOP Senator Rich,
Present.
SPP Senator Prashant,
Present.
SOP Senator Luna, SOP Senator
Sorry. Absent. Sorry. Okay, thank you. We can move on to the approval of the agenda, and I would like to, present an amendment to the agenda by adding an item in new business, which is the staff ratification for the Office of Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Can I get a motion to approve this amendment? Senator Shawkat.
I move to approve the amendment to tonight's agenda.
Can I get a second? Senator Prashant.
A second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 13-0-0. Okay. So we can now move into public forum.
You need a motion to approve your amended agenda now.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You're right. Okay. Now can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Senator Prashant.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Can I get a second? Senator Tsao.
I second that motion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 13-0-0. Okay, now we can move on to public forum. Would anyone like to speak? So you can raise your hand and you get 3 minutes at your first word. I see no one. Okay, now we can move into the approval of previous meeting minutes. Next one. Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments about Senate meeting minutes 2 through 5? No? Can I get a motion to approve Senate meeting minutes 2 through 5? Senator Shawkat.
I move to approve Senate meeting minutes 2 through 5.
Can I get a second? Senator Fanous.
I second this motion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 13-0-0. we will now move on to new business. And I will be reading on behalf of VP DEI, her staff modifications. Okay, let me try this again, sorry. Okay, so the first ratification is for Nayeli Dominguez for the Ethnic and Gender Program Liaisons / Student Resource Center Liaison. Nayeli is a fourth-year sociology major who serves as the Student Outreach Coordinator for the Chicana student programs on campus, where she has been involved throughout her time here at UCR. She also serves as the co-chair for Movimiento, okay, sorry, I don't know how to say this, but it looks like Mecca de UCR, a student organization that aims to promote higher education, culture, and history. Her strong background in campus involvement makes her a meaningful candidate for the Ethnic and Gender Program Liaison and Student Resource Center Liaison position. She was also nominated by the majority of the Diversity Council student representatives for this position in our Week 2 meeting. And if you all have any follow-up questions, you can feel free to reach out to Vice President DEI. But if there are no comments or concerns, can I get a motion to ratify Nayeli Dominguez? Senator Bay,
Motion to ratify office of vice president of the student faculty.
can I get a second? Senator Fanous?
I second the motion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 13-0-0. The next one is Zamarian King for the Diversity Council Commissioner. Zamarian is a rising third year at UCR. She is part of the Office of Foster Youth Support Services here on campus, where she has built meaningful relationships with her peers and employers. Zamarian has expressed a strong passion for student advocacy and meaningful student representation on campus, and is a meaningful addition to our Diversity Council as a student representative for the Office of Foster Youth Support Services. Her campus involvement and ingenuity makes her a strong candidate for our Diversity Council Commissioner. Okay, does anyone have any comments or concerns? If not, can I get a motion to approve the ratification of Zamarian King for the Diversity Council Commissioner? Senator Shawkat.
I move to approve the ratification of Zamari King for Diversity Council Commissioner.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Senator Bouchon.
I second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 13-0-0. Okay, thank you. We can now move on to committee reports. Can I get a motion to open all items under committee reports? Senator Fanous,
Motion to open all items under committee reports?
can I get a second? Senator Shawkat.
I second the motion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Sorry. All those abstain? Motion passes 13-0-0. Okay, starting with LRC.
Perfect. So, hi everyone. LRC had a very busy week last week. So our first bill here is SBF 25009. It is titled Amending Senator Community Service Requirement. Mia, would you like to speak on this bill?
Yes, so Senator Zohari and I, we're reading through all of your bylaws, and she did a little housekeeping here, fixing that. But the main point of this is just to refine the senator community service requirement by simplifying event exemptions. And I decided to become a secondary author to this just because I really want to emphasize that senators are students first, and even before that, they're people. And I understand that our lives as college students are very demanding, and I just felt that the language kind of didn't allow for flexible exemptions, and I wanted to make sure that you all felt comfortable enough to reach out to me if you had a problem with volunteering or you couldn't make those hours. But I do want to make it clear, you still have these requirements, But it's not as strict as they were written previously. That makes sense. Does anyone have any questions? And this is obviously in yellow, this is what will be changed. Yeah. Senator Sal.
How will we ensure that like people aren't abusing this? Because, you know, we are senators, we are elected officials, and we do have like, a sort of like, we have to serve our student body. So I'm just like curious how, we're not like just letting people off the hook and like letting them abuse what, this bill tries to encapsulate, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, all of your requirements are still there. We are just adding that senators may be excused for additional like community service opportunities that are written in your bylaws. I guess my answer to your question would just be that I definitely do my due diligence for everyone's excuses, and the only ones that I have gotten are circumstances, like emergency circumstances. Otherwise, everyone has completed their requirements. And yeah, I also, part of my job is to hold you all accountable, but in addition, we also have President Hayter that looks over my work with you all. So there are definitely multiple positions that will make sure the senators do not abuse this. I also, of course, reserve the right to not approve your excuses, so, yeah. Senator, PBT Rao.
Can you also just, I guess, further touch upon why line E is being removed? Why it's being
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, that line is being removed just because, we want to promote senators going out to, community service events when, even if it's not ASUCR event related. And if the line is senators must represent ASUCR at the event that they're choosing, I feel like that's not very flexible for everyone, and I definitely don't see the need to require every single senator to represent ASUCR every single time they go to the event of their choosing to fulfill this bylaw requirement.
I mean, I guess maybe would it be better just to say senators can represent ASUCR at the event they're choosing? That choose to, instead of removing the whole requirement out there.
Yeah, but, so the line is senators must represent ASUCR. If you would like to, then you don't really require a line. If that makes sense. But you know, if you all feel that that line should be in there, then you can vote otherwise. Yes, Senator Benz.
Just to clarify, when it says senators excused for external events, are you referring to like them reaching out to you and communicating to you, or are there other people that they can reach out to? Like, what are the technicalities of reaching out, and communicating the excuse that we gave?
So it would be, the second part of the line is at the discretion of the executive vice president. It would be through me, just me, yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions? This is a bill to help you all, but, yep, Senator Shawkins.
Not a question, but just a comment. When me and I had our quarterly meeting, something that she mentioned that I think really helps to clarify why the removal of line B is really important here is that when you go to a lot of these volunteer events, they have uniforms for you, like whether that be a soup kitchen or somewhere else. You're already in uniform with other people. So I don't know if wearing your ASUCR polo would really be able to, like, I don't know if it would be necessary for that situation. I just thought I'd add that because I remember when she brought that up, that helped to clarify for me at least.
Go ahead, Hannah.
Okay, so I just wanted to also clarify because I wrote this section last year, like I wrote this bill, like to add the community service requirement last year, so I can give a little bit of insight as to what I meant, like my intention when I wrote this. this. Basically, when I said students are representing ASUCR, like, I'm not saying you have to dress a certain way to distinguish yourself and be like, oh, like, ASUCR, you know, like, this is me, like, no, you don't have to make it, like, loud and obvious, but you can, like, make it clear through your presence, through connecting with others, like, that's what I meant by it, is like, you can just, like, establish yourself as someone representing ASUCR by, like, going around introducing yourself to folks and being like, oh, I'm with ASUCR, by the way, and that helps people know that, like, ASUCR student body is trying to basically connect with the student body. We're here at the events. We're not just like a random student. And that helps create also a better image of us because as you've seen in the previous years, a lot of students feel a disconnect from us and the student body because they think we don't show up for them, right? But we are. They just don't know that because we're not making it clear. So it doesn't have to necessarily be you visualizing yourself like as an ASUCR representative, but like verbally too, like whatever that looks like for you. It's the open language is there. So I'm a little bit confused why it's crossed out, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. Again, I think it's just the same thing that Jaden brought up. If you would like to represent yourself in that way, that's totally still, your right to do. Sarah and I just didn't believe that it needed that language, there. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? No? Okay. Can I get a motion for Senate Bill F 25009? Senator Bouchard,
I move to approve Senate Bill F 25009.
can I get a second? Senator Shawkut,
Second this motion.
all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Did someone just remind me? Okay. Motion does not pass, 904. So, do we need to motion to table, or does it just go back to LRC?
Sorry, what was your vote count?
904,
Was that yes, no, abstentions?
yes, no abstentions, yes. Does that,
That passes. You have a
oh, okay,
you have a simple majority for anything that is not constitutional, or like there are certain things that are in your constitution that are related. So unless that was 9 no, you have 9 yeses.
okay. Okay, motion passes 904, sorry. Cool, let's move on to the next bill.
Okay, so the next bill is SBF 25010. So the next 4 bills are all going to be related to Scotty Eats. Emmy, if you want to speak on this bill.
Yeah, I can speak on behalf of President Yeager. I coordinated with her plan to revise some of her presidential duties and responsibilities. As you can see in section 1, we just kind of cleaned up the language in regards to her involvement in the Council of Presidents and her involvement with the Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, and the Provost, as well as added in the Scotty Eats language into her bylaws because she does serve as a lead for the program. So, yes. We also went in and specifically for the Hub Governing Board, which is line H of section 3. We removed language that wasn't exactly accurate to her role as part of the board. And yeah, if anyone has any questions.
Anyone have any questions, comments? Okay, I see none. Can I get a motion for Senate Bill F 25010? Senator Shawkat.
I move to approve Senate Bill F 25010.
Can I get a second? Senator Evade.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 12-0-1.
Perfect. Okay, so our next bill is SBF 25011. So this is implementing Scotty Eats into the Office of the Vice President of Sustainability bylaws. Emmy, Anna, if you want to speak on this, the floor is yours.
Alright. Hello, senators. So I also did the same thing, basically just adding the Scotty Eats bylaw change language into my personal bylaws because if you don't know, Scotty Eats is a food recovery initiative with GCAP, ASUCR, Office of the President, ASUCR, Office of Internal Affairs, which is the next bylaw, and then some other departments, but we wanna make sure that this continues after we graduate. We know Basic Needs Department, Office of Sustainability are great at keeping our student leaders informed of the projects that they're supposed to be a part of. But we also wanna make sure that there's like accountability on the internal side of AS2CR by having this language written in our bylaws. So I just talked about how generally the VPS is supposed to be a lead for Scotty Eats at least twice a month. They have to assign 2 GCAP interns to staff each Scotty Eats event on a rotational basis, which is a requirement for all leads. And then they also have to attend the bi-weekly Scotty Eats lead meetings with the different departments that are involved. So just making sure that they're, being held accountable for going to the meetings, contributing. I also said, this is kind of like obvious, but I just wanna make sure that it's there, is making sure that the VPS initiates and upholds sustainable practices during Scotty Eats, so like encouraging students to bring their own Tupperware, like just being creative with initiatives that they can use to promote sustainability on campus. And then also being responsible for the marketing strategy. This is a little bit new and it can be subject to change in future years. But this year I took on the initiative of being in charge of the marketing strategy for how we're gonna promote Scotty Eats. And it's already written into like the document that we had to sign from Basic Needs that like this is something that VP Sustainability like does. So, and it's part of our plan for Scotty Eats. So I just wrote that VPS can continue this, but in the future years, if they decide, actually, no, I don't wanna do that, another lead wants to do that, then they can change this language, but it's just there for now because they have the system in place, they can just continue it. Yeah. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Questions? Can I get a motion for Senate Bill F 25011? Senator Bouchon.
I move to approve Senate Bill F 25011.
Can I get a second? Senator Rialzi.
I second that.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 12-0-1.
Okay, so the next bill is SBF 25012. This is basically just adding Scotty Eats now to the Vice President of Internal Affairs bylaws. If any of the primary authors are here, they can speak on this.
I'm the only primary author here, but yeah, I basically helped implement the Scotty Eats language into the Office of Vice President of Campus Internal Affairs bylaws. I know that they did also remove the language for the Sexual Harassment and Sexual Violence Prevention Committee and replaced it with the Campus Safety Committee instead. While I don't know too much about that aspect of the change, I know that in the background it says that the reason for it is because the Sexual Violence Prevention Committee was a bit redundant due to the coexistence of the Campus Advocacy Resources and Education, which is CARE. And they said that it lacks the resources to provide professional support for survivors of sexual violence. And so this bill adds the Campus Safety Committee to connect students and stuff.
So is it just it was just a name change and then you added it into the Vice President of Internal Affairs bylaws?
So I didn't actually write that part. I just wrote the Scotty East part. But yeah, unfortunately, I wish I could explain a little bit better, but. I think their idea behind it was to, I guess, broaden the idea of the committee, and better connect students with resources that are, I guess, like less specific to sexual assault and sexual violence prevention.
Yeah, because from my understanding, that's not, like, that's not the committee anymore. So this bylaw, like, this is under someone else's bylaws already? Yeah.
There was actually a bill that we did table last week that changed it, because this committee was originally in personnel, but it's being moved to internal affairs.
That's what it is.
It's
Okay,
currently,
that was my
it
question.
passed LRC today, so it should be on the Senate agenda next week. It just didn't pass, because the original bill for that one didn't have a background, so that's why we had to table it from last week. But
Does anything in that bill have to do with us being able to pass this one? Because, do you know what I'm saying?
I see. My original, at least with this bill, the original thing was just adding Scotty East to it. I
Yeah.
didn't know that they were gonna be adding, or changing committees around it. It's a bit of a conundrum
Sometimes
here.
you have to wait until certain bills pass before you can pass the other ones, you know what I mean? But that's my take on that. Yeah, Senator Prashad.
I also just want to reflect, I think in the bylaws it says like ethnic and gender program offices. Those aren't what they're called anymore, they're called student resource centers for the university, and I think that should be reflected, I think, when we ratified someone in the office of DAI as well, that should just be student resource centers, not ethnic and gender centers.
PPT Ron.
I moved to table SBF 25012.
Anyone second? Senator Mendoza.
I second the motion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 1102. 1102. Okay, so that bill will be tabled.
Okay, the next bill is SBF 25013, deleting the Food Security Committee. Senator Southey wants to speak on this one.
Yes, so the Food Security Committee no longer exists, and essentially what the committee was doing before is what Scotty East is doing now. So we're just deleting the Food Security Committee and implementing it into other sections, other officers' bylaws, which better reflect the existence of the Scotty East program.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, can I get a motion for SBF 25013? Senator Ching,
I move to from SBF 25013.
can I get a second? Senator Abate, all those in favor, all those opposed, all those abstain, motion passes 1201.
Okay, so this next bill, SBF 25014, it's something that President Hader and I have kind of talked about in the past a few times. It adds a resolution requirement for senators. So if you check the Senate bylaws here, everyone here is required to write legislation, at least 3 legislations throughout the whole year, divided between the quarters. We wanted to change it to just be Senate resolutions instead of Senate bills, mostly because a lot of Senate bills are basically just changing like certain words around, certain highlighting things. And for this to be such a big requirement throughout the year, it makes more sense for Senate resolutions to be there because Senate resolutions require more collaboration, more research. They're better reflective of being a senator and advocating for your constituents and everything. Senators are still encouraged to write Senate bills as secondary legislation, but the requirement is only going to be for 7 resolutions from now on if this passes. I do want to preface is that if this just passed Senate today, senators, as of right now in this quarter, won't be required to write resolutions by the end of the quarter. I know it's like almost the end of fall quarter. I don't expect anyone here, unless you're already working on a resolution of some kind, to like rush to get one submitted before the end of the quarter. But if this does pass Senate today, winter quarter is when it's going to start to be enforced. So I encourage also anyone, if you're kind of confused about how to write a resolution, the templates that are on my drive show you how to kind of write them. Also, if you go on the ASUCR website and look at past resolutions, you can kind of see a good format of certain topics that were discussed in the past. Last thing also as well, many of you also ran on a campaign when you were running for senator, saying that I'm going to do this about this, like certain things. Like maybe one of those things that you talked about in your campaign could be a potential resolution. Just things to think about in the future. But this just basically clarifies what the legislative requirement is for the future. Also at the top of section 4, I just also added some etiquette during Senate meetings, just mainly common sense, like just pay attention to presentations, votes, refrain from using personal electronic devices, common sense things. But are there any questions about anything?
Senator
Josh.
Michelle, sorry, I just have one question.
Yes.
So I know, like, I like the amendment and how, we're focusing on resolution. I think
Mhm.
we should keep, or at least amend it so that senators focus on at least, like, amending one Senate bill
Mhm.
throughout the academic year. Cause I think that's the way that we sort of keep ASUCR up to date with bylaws. So I think
Yes.
we should maybe add a requirement for one through the year, not maybe not like each quarter.
Mhm.
Just so, we're still like amending those bylaws.
Of course, I agree with that. I still believe Senate bills, they hold a lot of potential. I think what Layla and I were talking about originally with this is just because of the past experience with the legislative requirement for senators last year. And I know Asha also touched on this in her report last year, or last week, that there were much more Senate bills submitted than resolutions. And, especially with some of these Senate bills being like really minor changes, that's why I feel at least the resolutions would be more tentative for the future. But I completely understand what you're saying from where you're coming from. So, any other questions?
Okay, I see none. Can I get a motion for SPF?
I think let's.
It's okay.
Do you have a question?
It was more so a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I can comment?
Yeah.
Under section 4, number 16,
Mm-hmm.
B, like, I just wanna highlight that also, due to this requirement, like, senators are able to collaborate, with, like, other senators as well, like, see, issues that, they can work on together, in resolutions, so in addition to bills as well. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Can I get a motion for SPF 25014? Senator Fanous,
Our motion, to approve SB F 25014.
can I get a second? Senator Rialsi,
I second.
all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 12-0-1.
Okay, so our next bill here is SBF 25015. This is amending the Executive Fellowship Program. Dom, I don't know if you want to also speak on this as well. But mainly I worked with Paulina, the Executive Fellowship Director, and Dom to kind of edit the requirements for the Executive Fellows. This mainly came about during the first fellowship meeting about around 2 weeks ago. We were going over the requirements for the Executive Fellows. And we noticed a lot of discrepancies with meetings and how often they're supposed to meet with their ECAB mentor. So mainly situated around like a quarterly progress report. We wanted to specify that for both the responsibilities of the Executive Fellows, the ECAB mentors, and the Fellowship Director themselves. Because the original language was very much unclear of who reported to who, how often progress reports are made and everything. So on a quarterly basis is more reasonable for a lot of Executive Fellows. Also, I changed the language here because the original bylaws had discrepancies with words that Executive Fellow and just Fellows, and then capitalizing Fellows is. So I just made every instance of the word Fellow being mentioned added Executive in front of it just to make it more professional and everything. Also big right here, for section 3, line 5, I changed the 48-hour timeline part right here to maintain timely professional communication with either ECAB mentor and the fellowship director, mainly because this 48-hour time frame can be a lot for some executive fellows, and I say that when a lot of elected officials like ourselves, we don't meet this deadline, which isn't exactly a good look for us. But I think being more reasonable of the executive fellows and not expecting this many requirements of them, like being more professional and more streamlined with everything, makes a bit more sense. Because I could tell during the fellowship meeting when we went over these original bylaws, it was very overwhelming for a lot of the fellows at first, and a little unfair too. We had to talk to a few of them about which meetings you attend and everything. So making this more streamlined with the quarterly progress report, just maintaining timely communication and attending scheduled meetings with your ECAB mentor should help streamline the requirements for the fellows. So, Don, if you want to add anything else as well.
No, you said all of it.
Perfect, okay. Any questions about anything?
Senator Ching?
This might be a,
Yes.
yeah, I have a question about like section 3.4,
Mm-hmm.
and why legislative is moved and not like judicial.
So I removed legislative mainly because legislative is basically Senate meeting. And if you look at section 3, line 10, you're already attending one Senate meeting per quarter, so it's redundant to also, and also just the phrasing legislative meeting is basically a Senate meeting, so that's the main reason why I deleted that. But to your point with judicial, judicial is it's the branch that some fellows are curious about, and I had a few that talked to me actually at the fellowship meeting that asked like maybe if they could sit in on a judicial meeting at, of course, the discretion of the judicial council. I didn't really think about removing that requirement. Mostly I was focused on just looking at line 10 about the Senate meeting, and that's why I removed legislative. So
Yeah, it also says may request, so it's like not a harsh requirement. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? If not, can I get a motion for SBF 25015, Senator Shawkat?
I move to approve SBF 25015.
Can I get a second, Senator Bouchon?
I second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion passes 12-0-1.
okay, our next bill is SBF 25016. So if you remember a few weeks ago with the editing the Vice President of Marketing and Promotions bylaws with the social media accounts, I said that that was one of two bills related to the consolidation of the social media accounts. This bill is basically the second bill, and I'll have Anthony speak on what exactly was changed.
Yes, so what's just changing is where it's removing all of the Instagram accounts that are not part of the 6 consolidated Instagram accounts, and also adding a TikTok account because that exists for ACCR now. And it also changes, I think, in section 4, it removes that and adds it to section 3. And instead of having social media accounts approved by the executive branch, it has to be approved by the Senate through this bylaw.
Does anyone else have any questions? I will say for section 3, line F, the ACCR legislative account it's managed by my social media director, but for ACCR Senate, like, are you meaning you all will have access to that and manage that?
I think I added that just so that we can have like input on like what content was on the account, but not necessarily have access.
Okay.
I can also leave it like that.
Does anyone else have any questions or concerns? Okay, can I get a motion for SBF 25016? Senator Sao,
I move to approve SBF 25016.
can I get a second? Senator Mendoza, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 11-0-2.
Wait, I have a question now that I've asked. Like, so in terms of like the disclaimer statement that means like it has to be posted on all like ASUCR like accounts.
Sorry, where is that?
It's like on number 8, like D.
That was just copied from section 4.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. That's my only question. Sorry. Hey y'all. You know, fun fact. Oh, did I? Okay. Fun fact. This is the first resolution of this year. Yeah. Okay. Oh, do you want me? Okay. Basically what this resolution was is I know y'all heard Layla and I kind of talk the past 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago regarding like my meeting with Milliken and also her meeting with the chancellor. And basically what we kind of did was just like add kind of a resolution to kind of further enforce like, you know, administration at the UC and also at the UCR level to ensure that they're meeting with student representatives. This was also like authored by Aditi, who is the UC Student Association president. So she serves as the president for all of like the association to represent like all the UC campuses in terms of advocacy. But yeah, it's basically what this resolution would further enact is just to kind of ensure that we follow through like, you know, what we talked about like 2 weeks ago, and you know, kind of enforce administration to like meet with us. Any questions?
No questions? Senator Face?
I move to approve. I move to approve, SR F-2500.
Can I get a second? Senator Kershaw?
I second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 13-0-0.
Oh wait. Yay. Thank you guys.
That's all for LRC this week.
Thank you. We can move on to Finance Committee hearing number 6. And we will be having, I believe, Asha come and present because no senators were present during this meeting, right?
No, but I can still like
Oh,
say
okay.
a little.
Sorry, Vice President Choi told me that no one was there to present.
Oh.
But,
I can speak on it.
okay, yeah.
So the Finance Committee held its 6th budget meeting on November 7th, where we approved $20,755 in funding for 14 student organizations and approved the exemption request for $975 for the Astronomy Club for equipment and repairs, bringing our organization's budget closing to $38,746. Our contingency fund remains at $40,077.
Hi friends, I'll explain the last item that is on the finance, or that was approved at the finance committee, which is the budget amendment. So each year when we do our budget process, which you all will be able to experience in the spring, yay, we project whatever enrollment is going to be. Actually, for the past couple of years, we go into our budget process pretty conservative, right? Because if you, those of you all who track the state budget and legislative conversations, know that it's up and down, right? One moment they're like, you get this many more students, you get this much more funds, and then they go into a fight for most of March, April, May, sometimes June, which is not helpful when we need to, when our budget is dictated by how many students we actually enroll. So in the spring, we start off pretty conservatively in our budget process, and we usually assume no enrollment growth in that, and we plan from there, mainly just in case, right? So you don't want to plan for having more students and more funds available as a fee-driven organization versus going back and cutting that. So what we do in the last 2 years is when this happens in the fall, after we get census, we'll represent the budget as a budget amendment to account for the confirmed census and headcount, because that determines essentially how much funds we're going to absorb as an organization. and also if there's any corrections that we need to make in different areas, and things like that. So I'll walk you all through some of those. So first, the enrollment was adjusted to 24,034, that's reflected in the fall census. There was a correction in the reserve percentage that we utilized. It was listed in the language as 8%, but calculated as 7%, so we corrected that. What we do in the budget every year, so we have a number of different reserves that we utilize, and reserves is essentially the funds unspent from previous years. That all dumps down. By your finance policy, that actually dumps into 5 different reserves. Capital, general reserve, technology, that replaces every computer, equipment, and things in the office. Capital, usually larger projects, so like the office refresh that we just finished was a capital project. Eventually, this chamber will be a capital project. I'm gonna say it as many times whenever I get off the campus's project list to an active project. And then we have a discretionary fund and a Senate fund. The Senate one is actually what we utilize to then put money back into the budget every year. So we carve out a portion of that. Mainly that's based on needs for the organization. So if we see that you all have either a lot of new stable projects that are going to continue, we then increase that. And so we can increase that in planning up to 10% of what is in what is in the reserve overall before needing to come to you to increase that use. So because the other reserves are planned reserves, and so we don't just sit on money as an organization. They are plans. Like general reserve is for if we have a significant dip in enrollment and need to support the budget year, we can do that out of our reserve without being able to pull a significant amount of our programs and operations in there. So just want to add that. Because of the overall change, contingency was increased to 51,777. That will make sense when I go through the rest of the areas. In the organization, the budget, that enrollment number was adjusted to reflect the true enrollment number, and we rolled back support for organization funding specialist or financial services coordinator out of the organization. That position is still funded. A couple of years ago, I made the decision when you all were only allocating like $200,000 and you had $600,000 in your reserve. We made a plan to grow a full-time staff member over a number of years. So versus saying, hey, I need $66,000 for a full-time staff position, which we desperately still need in the office, right? We were actually gonna pace that over 5 years. So we're gonna do that from the organization because that position primarily supports the organization budget. But because you are at your highest allocation year ever, I can't in good faith sit on $39,000. So we have moved that back to the organization budget, which we can fund not just this year, but in future years, which the finance will get my projections pretty soon for that. So that makes that added $39,500 to the available funds for finance to allocate out to general allocations and grants for the year. And operating, that added the full cost of our financial services coordinator, given the changes to that respective budgets. Our assessment fee for the division was adjusted to real cost this year. We usually don't get those till the very end of summer when everyone else is finishing their end of year stuff. Then we suddenly get like the real cost for like utilities, assessments. Assessments are a section of the budget goes into the Vice Chancellor's office and UCOP for the cost of managing the fee. So a huge portion of what we all do in the office is the spending of the fee, but the receipt and administration of that is through office of the general office of the president, and then through the Vice Chancellor's office as our reporting area. Your nameplates were changed to reflect real costs, including the name badges that we added to you all's gearing this year. GCAP referenda was adjusted to real enrollment numbers. SBI was adjusted to real enrollment numbers. And then the Barrison was adjusted to the actual charges for the hub. So we pay for utilities for all the spaces that we occupy. So 202, both for ASUCR and then the Barrison, we get a utility charge because those aren't billed like the way that your house or apartment are billed. We don't get those. I wish we got them once a month. I would start turning off every light in the suite if I knew where we were at. And charging that, we get that charge on an annual basis. That was updated to real. So you actually pick up, again, $39,000 or just over $39,000 in live funds, And then with the reserve use change that made more available to cover those small adjustments, then actually add about $10,000 more into your contingency for the year for new projects. So that is your budget adjustment.
Thank you so much, Asha. Does anyone have any questions or comments about anything finance committee related? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve finance committee minutes number 6? Senator Shawcut,
I move to approve finance committee meeting minutes number 6.
can I get a second? Senator Mendoza,
I second the motion.
all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes 13-0-0. Okay, thank you. We can now move on to public comment. Would anyone like to speak? I don't know, Asha.
I just sent this note over to your PPT, but if anyone would like to author the bill to do the student center change names, please do not send me a bill per chapter, that is unnecessary. Just need one single clean bill to adopt the new changes, and then we'll make those changes across your documents. It's kind of the same way we do for formatting or other things, we just need that done one. Again, please do not send me a bill per chapter, I will delete your file and do that. And when you're admin, I will do it, please don't do that, that's just unnecessary. We just need one clean one to direct those changes, and we'll make those there as well.
Senator Prashant.
Yeah, I can take care of that.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, go ahead.
Just really quick on behalf of judicial, I don't wanna like spook anybody or anything, this isn't with like that intention. Last year, I believe judicial would hand out, half strikes per violation. We are going to be giving full strikes per violation. If you get 3 strikes, you're on timeout for 6 weeks, five strikes, and you're just removed from your position. I'm not trying to spook anybody by saying that, but I just wanna like put that out there so you're all aware, and so that you're, I don't know, prepared, but just wanted to put that information out there in case anybody like didn't know, or, cause the bylaws are a lot, but, okay.
If someone submits a strike, though, I just wanna clarify, like, you all would first deem if it's even necessary to strike them, right?
We would all deem if it's necessary, if we wanna move forward with it, then you'd go through arraignment, hearing, all of that, but that's up to the court. So, if somebody like submits a complaint and it's like, hey, we believe that this strike is, like, they violated this, it's up to us to decide whether or not it's appropriate to issue a strike. But if not, then it's like,
Okay, thank you. Don't worry, guys.
sorry,
No,
didn't wanna like
circuit
scare anybody,
strikes.
didn't wanna scare anybody, but I just like, I wanted to make that clear, just like, yeah, sorry, I didn't wanna scare anybody.
No worries, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak during public comment? Okay, I see no one. Let's go on to senator reports. Would anyone like to give their senator report? Okay, thank you, Senator Riossi.
We have our town hall tomorrow at 6 p.m. Winston, Town Hall 206/205. I encourage all of you to come, show support. It's the first town hall, so I think we'll all learn a lot from it.
Thank you so much. I really encourage all of you to go as well. And I'm really excited to see what you and Sarah do with your town hall. Would anyone else like to do their senator report? Senator Ching?
So I'm working with the other student centers on planning our town hall, currently set for around week 10. We're also working on setting up our quarterly meeting with the divisional deans as well. DC Mass Advising Center, I think it's scheduled for next Friday. Also currently sitting on the legislative review committee. My legislation on social media comes passed today, and also working on legislation to consolidate the Senate, like
you're out.
As always, legislation's due at 12:30 every Tuesday.
Yes, get your bills and your resolutions in. And, whoa, everyone's packing up already. Does anyone else have any roundtable announcements? I do. Okay, I just wanted to, formally introduce our, Chaff Senator David Wendelin Linkard. And yes, this is his first Senate meeting. Thank you for joining, and I believe our